Okay, let's do this, Ricky Flex. This was your idea. This is a very good idea. And it was something where, as we're getting towards the end of the year, it's going to be a lot of best of the year rankings, performances, movies, anticipation going into 2025. But this is just a fun way that we can go from a Thanksgiving streaming episode, right, and a streaming guide that we gave. Now let's hop in. Let's transition to the Christmas season or the holiday season, right? And let's talk about items. I think you should kick it off, though, Ricky Flex. What is first on our list to Santa?
Okay. I could start out hot, or I could go kind of a layup to start, maybe. Man, I'm gonna.
There are no layups here. This is just what you want, and collectively what we want to see. So it doesn't. It does just something that you want to talk about, honestly.
Okay, fine. This is something that I actually wanted to bring up. I wish that comedy movies would come back like the 2000s.
Return of the comedy.
Yeah, the return of the comedy. That's what I wish. You hear Todd Phillips talk about, like, I'm never going to do a comedy again, just different era. Can't do what I want to do without getting canceled, stuff like that. You see Ben Stiller commenting 2 weeks ago about how Tropic Thunder would never get made today. I miss the 2000s comedy era. I wish that era, not necessarily like the same exact thing, but just like that type of comedy to come back and then do well at the box office. That is on my wish list this year.
Great idea. That's a great way to start and set the tone for this list. Ricky, I think we kind of have an avenue to do that. And I think when you look at when movies are made, you kind of can divide it up almost by like what's happening during in the world at the time, politics. Sometimes it's divided by presidencies. Here, it seems like we're obviously with Trump like coming back into office, it's like people are a little bit more insensitive, I guess. And I think people can be, this idea of freedom of speech with Elon and everything. I feel like I could see this happening. I think the likelihood, if I had to put it on a meter, the return of the comedy, I'll do like a 6 out of 10. Like a 6 out of 10. We won't go full blown like feral mid 2000s, but I think like people are warming up to like the idea of the comedy returning. Internet maybe getting a little bit less sensitive. I see it, Ricky Flex. Good pick.
Yeah, I think 6 out of 10 is the right way to look at this. And I think you made a lot of good points. Another good point to kind of make in favor of this happening, or the reality of it, is streaming.
Ooh, yeah, good point.
Just a lot more freedom there. Streamers are allowing directors and actors to kind of do what they want for the most part. So that kind of helps this argument. Something that kind of hurts it, though, is also the box office. Not a lot of comedies do well at the box office anymore. And I also think it's a talent issue. Because I think stand-up, because of streaming, that like stand-up comedy is getting a lot bigger. But at the same time, like SNL is not as big as it once was. The talent, like there's no Will Ferrell's coming out of SNL anymore, right? I just think there's a lot, like there's no Adam Sandler's coming out of SNL. It's just the talent isn't as much there. And what the talent is going to is stand-up comedy. And that just doesn't bring the same oomph to a comedy movie, because those movies just turn out to be Kevin Hart movies. So I think it's a huge issue where I think it keeps it at a 6 versus it having a higher likelihood.
So you don't think guys like Shane Gillis could be leading a movie someday?
I think they can. It's just like not this type of movie that I'm talking about.
We're so distanced from like Will Ferrell as a comedic titan leading a comedy, like, and it being bankable in theaters. We're so far away from that. And it feels like whenever we get a comedy to like really anticipate, it ends up being like a legacy sequel from a name that we knew from 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or even 30 years ago. And so it seems like there's not many actors coming up that are just, oh, that's a great comedic actor. There's just great comedians. You know, we got to turn those comedians into great comedic actors. Because like I feel like the Ferrells, like Ferrell wasn't really a stand-up comedian. He was on SNL. You know, we keep bringing him up because he is like the golden age of the comedy in the mid 2000s, right? Just like Vince Vaughn. not a stand-up comedian, but a great comedic actor. We don't get like that guy's a great comedic actor anymore. I feel like we don't really get that. That's what needs to come about. And maybe we get that transition, like the birth of podcasts and like these platforms for these comedians. I would like to see them make some movies, people part of that, like Shane Gillis Hive, right? Let's do
Tim
something.
Robinson, he's dabbling into A24. So yeah, maybe Shane Gillis could do it. But the fact that we're just relying on one guy to carry this wish is
the chosen one.
He's the chosen one.
Yeah, but it also goes with it. Like, what's the most anticipated comedy for next year? Happy Gilmore 2.
Sandler.
Yeah, and it's just Sandman, like doing something we knew that reminds us of when comedy was great. We need someone to spice it up, spark it up. So elves, get on it. We need better comedic actors. We want to bring back the comedy. My turn. Second up on the wish list. I'll do one that is relevant to movies right now and Oscars. My wish list is that on Christmas morning, if it came after the Oscars, a golden statue will be underneath the tree of one Denis Villeneuve for Best Picture. That is my Christmas wish, that Dune Part 2 wins Best Picture. Ricky, this is a very relevant, I think, item on the wish list, because did you see who is now becoming or emerging as the favorite for Best Picture?
I saw Variety say Wicked. It's not, I still am not going to believe it.
So I'm going to do some math, Ricky Flex, really quick. I want you to follow me. You are more of a math guy than me, but I want you to check my logic. So Dune Part 2 is greater than Dune Part 1. Can we agree?
Agreed.
Dune Part 2 is greater than Wicked. Can we agree?
Agreed.
Now, Dune Part 1 is greater than Wicked.
Agreed.
Then how the heck is Variety going to say Wicked is past Dune Part 2 and the lead contender for Best Picture? I know what you're going to say. You're going to talk about relevancy, how soon it's came out, right? Recently it's came out. You're going to talk about campaigning and all that. But when have we just said and stepped back and said this movie's better than the other movie? When it's, to me, it's clear as day. And if I had to say something about Wicked, this is becoming more about Wicked. This is like sending Wicked right to hell. I'm just kidding. This is more about. I'm looking at Wicked as more of like Barbie from last year. Theatrical experience, okay? IP related, okay? Female empowerment. And yes, like can get recognized for Best Picture, but certainly should not be as a contender. To me, it's more of Barbie of last year than it is a Best Picture contender. To me, it's like a 7, 8, 9, 10 you get in because of people are going to watch the Oscars if you have Cynthia Erivo there and Ariana Grande. But really, who should be holding space is Denis Villeneuve and Dune Part 2. So that's mine. I'm putting it on there. Wish list number 2.
Yeah, and John Chu will not be nominated for Best Director, I think. So this wish, I could see it happening because this is a weird year where we said it. I feel like I say this every week. It's a weaker movie year. Anora right now is in the lead to win Best Picture, and Sean Baker is in the lead to win Best Director, and Mikey Madison is in the lead for Best Actress, right? I think that is as close to a lock as we can get as of right now. But the other two, the former of Director and Picture, like Director, I could see it, but it's just a smaller movie. And then when you have a Denny V, who's going to be nominated for a third time, I think, here, and for Dune 2, and you have The Brutalist and Brady Corbet on a $10 million budget, but it's an American epic, I just think the Academy isn't going to give it to Sean Baker. They're going to give it between Denny V and The Brutalist. And then when you go to Best Picture, it's like Anora is a sad movie. The Brutalist is as well, but it's also America. So it kind of like, pulls that string a little harder to me. So I'm still on the Brutalist bandwagon, where I think it comes out Christmas Day, and then the Academy's like, this is the best picture of the year, best movie of the year.
What also is just driving me crazy is that Wicked is Wicked Part 1. You know, where was this enthusiasm for a part 1 when Dune Part 1 came out? And when that part 1 was attached to it, everyone was just like, okay, yep, we're going to save it for Dune Part 2. The time is now, brother. The time is now. This is the part 2. And I know Dune Messiah is coming. I don't think anyone expects it to reach the heights of Dune Part 2. This is the time. You're going to reward it. And brother, if they do Wicked Part 1 wins over Dune Part 2, I will be so livid. I will be so livid. That would be such BS because they held that against Dune Part 1. Dune Part 1 was my favorite movie in a weak movie year. You know, it wouldn't be a great Best Picture win. You know, if it had one, Dune Part 2 would be a more commercial win, but also is just a spectacle, and it's movie making at every level. That's just phenomenal. Acting, the way it's shot, the score just got disqualified for the Oscars, by the way, for Hans Zimmer. The whole production that went into Dune Part 2 is freaking a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. I can't look at Wicked and be like, that's a masterpiece. I can't have these two next to each other, and I'm choosing the one that looks more like Deadpool and Wolverine as opposed to what Greg Fraser shot with Dune Part 2. It just grinds my gears a little bit. The Brutalist, if I had to put money on it, that's going to win it. So likelihood of this happening, I'm also going to put it at a 6 out of 10. That's high.
Wait, likelihood of the Wicked or the Denny V?
No, my wish coming true that there's a golden statue underneath this tree.
Yeah. I think it's lower, to be honest.
I'm an optimist. That's how
Dune
I roll.
Part 2 should have came out in November. Like last month. That's what I should have done. Instead, they didn't, and now like Timothy, I know he's got a complete unknown, but that's kind of where his basket's going because he's going to really push for the best actor win and that. And then I know Denny V's doing these interviews. Now he's trying to make a campaign push. Even at Austin Butler out there doing some stuff for him, but it just might be too late. It just might be too late. Should have been doing it throughout the year, like Everything All at Once did, like a Coda did. You can't just take a few months off and then let these other movies build up momentum, and that's what they did. So, yeah, unfortunate. I would put this at like a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I was an optimist at 6. I was just looking at Return of the Comedy. I gave a 6 out of 10. This is probably more like a 4 or 5. What did you think about Timothée Chalamet's performance as a guest picker on College Game Day?
Hey, I know there's people that are like, oh, he's an actor. They gave him stats. Of course they did. Of course. But at the same time, you got to appreciate that he actually put in some effort. He could have absolutely mailed it in. But no, he's actually putting in work, going against the grain of these other analysts, pushing back. You got to respect it. I thought it was great. So even if he was fed all this information, which I'm sure he was, and he he's an actor, he remembered what to say, I don't care. Great performance. Great performance.
Yeah, so I don't think he knows college football. And I think it's because of his improvisational skills. It's because of his abilities as an actor. And he's being fed this information. He sounds like a ball knower. You know, I knew he was going to do well. I knew it was going to be positively received. When people were saying like, this is going to be awful, give him a football, see how he throws it. I would have loved to see that, by the way. If they just said, Timothée Chalamet, throw a 15-yard out, just like see what he looks like. That's where you see if he really is a ball knower. But he did great. Like for like someone that most people would say like, this guy's going to be terrible, but us, we're just like, this guy can do anything. He's a great actor, but he's campaigning so hard. Like he's obviously trying to sell a complete unknown. I think it's Searchlight, it's Disney, ESPN, Game Day. It all ties together, but he is everywhere right now. It's hilarious when he's campaigning with like the Marty Reisman ping pong get up with the mustache and the hair right now. But dude, he wants to win Best Actor. He really bad.
I would love to see. I'm not going to put that on my wish list. I did think about adding a Timothée Chalamet wish list. I got a bunch written down here, but I have other things that I think are more applicable here that I think take priority.
It was interesting also watching film Twitter and sports and college football Twitter like shake hands. It's like the Arnold and Carl Weathers Predator like handshake,
right.
And that was like us. Like it was very like warm center of where we are on the internet. That was cool to see.
And it was cool to see, like he actually went to the game, the SEC championship game.
I think
and
McConaughey might have been the one fed him the information.
Maybe. And he obviously, that was cool with like the movie dad moment. That was pretty cool.
And Interstellar is back in IMAX for its 10-year anniversary this weekend.
Stars are aligned.
Divine intervention, as Jules would say. Very cool. Okay. Next up on your wish list. What do you have?
Should we do another Oscars one or stay away from the Oscars?
I like to have a diverse list, so
All
maybe
right,
we'll come back to the Oscars.
Yeah, remind me of the Oscars. Should we get into comic books, or should I do one more before we get into comic books?
I got a comic book one next that is juicy.
All right, mine's not as juicy, so I'll do like a little appetizer for yours.
Appetizer.
This might be bad on the reality scale, but I'm all in on this. And I said it before on this podcast, and I'm going to say it again. I'm just going to put it out in the universe again. Martian Manhunter needs to be made into a movie. Mahershala Ali casting for the new DCU.
I had this on my list. I said the crossover from the MCU to the DCU for Mahershala Ali. James Gunn will treat him right. He'll give him everything he needs. He'll be able to execute. Blade is DOA right now. Even if like they start making it like 6 months from now, I have zero hope for that movie. Even if Mahershala Ali is in it, right? There's been too much tampering. There's not a clear vision. Even when they have a clear vision, I feel like there's not going to be the heart in it for Mahershala Ali because he might have been broken down by everything that's happened with Blade thus far. I think I had him perfectly for Martian Manhunter. He would nail the cadence, the slow talker, the physical presence on screen. Give me that, right? I'm with you. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's my big comic book one. I have another one that's not as good, but is that the one that you're referring to, like your big one, or do you have another one?
I have one that is juicier.
All right. So what are we thinking?
So this is going to be for the MCU, and it's going to be more of a storyline that I want to see. So what happens? I want the symbiote to be introduced in Spider-Man 4. And I want the symbiote suit in Marvel's Secret Wars. This is where we talked about we want more lore in Spider-Man for Tom Holland's version of the character. We talked about incorporating the Osborns, right? Daily Bugle, things of that nature, okay? I want the symbiote, and I want to have that one-to-one comparison from the iconic cover of Secret Wars, and I want to see it in live action. To me, that's superhero cinema. When you do it like that, that's what I want to see. Symbiote introduced in Spider-Man 4, used as a suit in Secret Wars. People are sick of the nanotech and all the technology base that's like borrowed from Tony Stark. Now we have a homemade suit by the end of No Way Home. And now let's turn that into him being possessed by an alien. Let's see it for Tom Holland. Let's get spicy here. I need to see the recreation. I want the symbiote introduced and then used in Secret Wars.
And timeline matches up. Spider-Man 4 releasing as of today, July 2026. Secret Wars 2027. So things would be lining up timeline-wise for that to be introduced. Venom is gone. Clarity around the symbiote in the MCU can be introduced and clearly made. A lot of clarity there. I like that. I think this is a good one. I would put this, especially after that explanation, it was pretty good. I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Wow, that's high. I'm going to go, just because we don't have Venom connectivity, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. You know?
Yet.
And the symbiote was shown in an MCU movie in a post-credit scene. You want to make sure there is some type of connectivity. I get it. Like it's taken back in Venom. Venom: The Last Dance, but it's not technically a part of the MCU. You could easily say it's still there, and then it somehow latches on to Peter Parker. Also, if you want to make Peter Parker like a more interesting character, right? Give him this dynamic, him with the internal battle. And then also, like, you can't imagine what, like, when he's going through that struggle and then he sees, like, I don't know what they plan on doing with RDJ as Dr. Doom, but being confronted with Dr. Doom, which is a variant potentially of Tony Stark. there's a lot of stuff you could do with Spider-Man. Just make him like the most interesting character in the universe. A lot of spiciness. So that's my number 4. What's your 5?
I'll go away from the comic books, but remind me, I have a big one, or like one that's big to me that I want to bring up later. Okay, let's talk about biopics for a second. I have a whole list of ones that could happen, but this is one that has to happen. And I know it's a music biopic, and we're getting kind of sick of them. But the fact that this hasn't happened yet is a crime against humanity, and it's Fleetwood Mac, like a Fleetwood Mac music biopic. It's Stevie Nicks. You could do Stevie Nicks focus, or you could do like making around rumors and all the affairs and drug use around that making of that album, not just with Stevie Nicks, but the entire band. Obviously, an iconic band, iconic music. The fact that we haven't gotten anything related to this is a travesty. Tragedy. It is.
What was the Amazon show? Daisy Jones and the Six? That was supposed to be Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, but like that's not the same. That's based off a book, though, right?
Yes, but it's a fictional band. I think it's based off Fleetwood Mac, but it does deserve the big screen treatment, especially with how young people embrace Fleetwood Mac. Rumors. Well, highest selling album I think of all time. Like that's what. If not, I don't know. It's up there.
It's up there.
I'll just say it's the best album of all time. Ooh. The thing is, we've had a lot of like musical biopics that are focused on individuals, lead singers, right? I would like it if you had it embracing the entire band and the group dynamics. There's no juicier group dynamics than Fleetwood Mac. All the talent that was there, but also like them marrying each other, breaking up with each other, right? The tension on stage, that would make for some very cinematic level of entertainment. I would be very in on that, Ricky Flex. That's a good one. It's kind of interesting because we've gotten Bohemian Rhapsody, which went into Queen, but basically it's more of a Freddie Mercury biopic.
For sure.
Then we have the Beatles biopic coming from Sam Mendes, and he plans on dividing up at least 4 movies, one for each of the Beatles, and then maybe like it's like the Beatles universe where they're connected, like all these movies. We don't know exactly what the layout's going to be. This would be interesting if you just made it about the band, because like Stevie Nicks is probably the most notable, but I don't know if Stevie Nicks should get a movie on her own. She's not like that big. Like she's not like Bob Dylan getting his own movie. She's not Elvis getting his own movie. She's really big. She's not even Freddie Mercury getting his own movie, honestly. So her being like the core of the movie, but not having potentially like to own all of it, it opens up doors for like to show like those tangent storylines. I'm in on it.
Yeah, I think you said a lot there. Like,
sorry,
no, but I think we do have a music biopic fatigue. This would add something a little different, and you kind of went into it. So I think this would be great. I think not only the story can hold weight, you could cast a lot of characters. You can cast this band very well because you'll have a lot of people that want to play these parts. And the dynamic of the group will just make it different versus like the Bruce Springsteen biopic that's coming about the making of Nebraska. It's good. This would be totally different, right? This would be totally different than the Beatles thing that Sam Mendes is doing. This is just very unique, very new, yet still that familiar music biopic thing that we all love.
Yeah. I want Florence Pugh as Stevie Nicks.
That's a good shout.
That's a separate wish list, maybe for another year, maybe for Christmas 2025. Great one, Ricky Flux. Good diversification. I have another one that diversifies, and I want to talk about a collaboration I want to see. On the wish list here, you probably have it on your list. I want to see a director and an actor underneath the mistletoe. I want to see Quentin Tarantino directing Tom Cruise for his final movie. I want that announced next year. Movie Critic fell through. Tom Cruise was heavily rumored to have a role in the Movie Critic. Tarantino says, we're not making the Movie Critic anymore. Wants to polish off an idea. Let's get Tom Cruise done with Mission Impossible, do that press tour. I think he already shot the Iñárritu movie. I believe that was shooting. If not, it's going to be early next year. I want Tarantino to have Tom Cruise to himself for his final movie, build it around him. A reason why you should have scrapped the Movie Critic is if you get to direct Tom Cruise in your last movie. Movie star director, the movie star of all movie stars. clashing together, right, for an unforgettable final ride for QT. That's what I want with number 6.
So I thought about putting this on my list. I thought about it, but I have something else for each of them. Where I have a couple for Cruise. He's so important to this podcast and to us. So like, no doubt he's going to be on this wish list. And QT I know is big too. But like QT, I was thinking a wish for him would be he'll make more than 10 movies.
Ooh, that's pretty good. Let's put almost like that's a sub wish.
Yeah, like a sub wish would be like, I wish Quentin Tarantino, like he's only like 58. Like Ridley Scott's working like 87 and he's working on a movie a year. QT, I feel like can do more movies and like I kind of think he will. He's gonna get bored after 10 years. I don't know. I feel like that's actually realistic.
I don't know because Tarantino is like the cockiest. Oh, Ridley Scott's pretty cocky too, but
Yeah,
Quentin Tarantino might be the cockiest dude.
he won the
rename as a director.
The
might
original
be like,
screenplay award. Like
he'll be like,
oh, it should be my award.
I would say my bet would be if Tarantino hits it out of the park, universally recognized as this might be the quintessential Tarantino movie, he doesn't make another movie, no matter what. If it's one that is middling with critics and audiences alike, he makes another movie because he loves to be loved. That's what I'd say.
But he's similar to Nolan, pre-Nolan winning an Oscar, where like he knows he wants to win an Academy Award for Best Director, Best Picture. He wants the highest accolades, not just Best Script, right? So that's where I'm like, he has that itch and he thinks he's the best. He wants to prove that he's the best, and he does respect that accolade. That's kind of where I'm like, and he can still write with the best of them, if not the best, and get the best actors. That's where like I think he can still do it. And he always makes excuses to make another film. He's combining the Kill Bills together. He's going to do TV series instead of a film. Like he's directing Justified. Like he's doing all these little things to stay in the business. He wants to stay in it. Right? I think I think it's possible.
It's possible. I don't know. He has an Oscar didn't he get it for writing for Pulp Fiction? Original screenplay?
He has like 3 screenplay Oscars. Pulp Fiction, Once Upon a Time, and
did he get one for Inglourious Bastards?
That would be a good guess, Quentin. I'll Google quickly. All right, so he won Best Writer Screenplay, Original Screenplay for Pulp Fiction, for Django Unchained. Oh, only 2. Okay. He didn't win for Once Upon a Time or Inglourious, but he was nominated for both of those.
Okay. So, but he's a guy who's very conscious of like film history. He's very conscious of like where he stands amongst the great directors. And he knows if he wants to be like mentioned, like he already is like a legend, but if he wants to be like considered the best, you need a best directing Oscar. You do. And he knows that. So I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility. The likelihood of him directing an 11th movie.
5?
Yes. I think it's 50-50. Because he's so young, you went through it all. I think it's a 5 out of 10. But your 7th wish list item here.
Okay. I'll go. We talked about Oscars a little bit. Can I do one with the Oscars?
Yeah, why not? It's up to you, man.
All right. This is going to sound bad, but hear me out. I wish the Oscars were important again.
So you asked to bring back the comedy, now you're asking to bring back the Oscar.
Well, I have other Oscars ones. Like I have one that said the Oscars should be in like February. Like the Oscars.
That's a terrible wish list item. That's like asking for a pair of socks from Santa Claus.
Or all right, then I have like stunt awards at the Oscars. Like we gotta.
Okay. So I think making the Oscars cool again is definitely okay. Like that's definitely fine.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Like dude, I always talk about like in the 90s, the Oscars were like the highest thing that you watched on cable that year besides the Super Bowl.
Most viewed.
Most viewed, sorry. Yes. Here it's like lucky if you get to 15 million views versus what it used to be like 50 million. Like it's so depressing, you know? And like it was a true true passing of the torch era, or like true like anointing people. The next guy I talk about, the Nick Cage, when he won, it was like this guy is the best actor in Hollywood. Now like it just feels like the Oscars are like they always have been like, oh, like this isn't necessarily the best movie or the best performance of this year, but it's even more so a problem now than it was like 20 years ago. And I just want it to be important again, cool again, relevant again.
Making the Oscars relevant again, where you don't rely on a slap or any physical violence towards high profile stars. I think that's a good idea, Ricky Flex. What does it look like if we bring it back? Because I think it also goes with it's pretty close to Return of the Comedy idea, where it's like what people are turned off by listening to some of these actors speak, and if they're tone deaf, right? Sometimes they think, and they're so out of touch with like reality and like the common man type of thing. I think it's gonna take a host like Gervais, like you know how he did it. Like you need something like that. So it's like we're not as sensitive now. You can speak your mind if you want to. I think a good host is a key, right, to kind of making the Oscars cool again. People get hyped for it, you know?
Yeah, Conan I think is doing the Oscars this year. I
Okay.
think it's Conan, so that's a pretty good host. He's caught ever since that like earlier this year when he did the hot ones. He's kind of caught on, right? So I think it's pretty good. Mulaney was obviously the guy that they wanted.
He'd be
So
great, dude. He would be a guy who would help bring it back, I think.
I think that will be like next year or the year after at some point. That would be big. But I think a big problem today is that back when I'm talking like the 90s, 2000s even, it's just like social media wasn't a thing. Like actors were much less, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they were even more secluded than they are today, you know? So it was a big moment to see the biggest stars at the most important event, right?
They weren't as available to people. Their lives weren't as
Right.
available because of social media. Now it's people choose to post their brands in
Yeah.
and of themselves. They're not as mysterious.
Right. Back when like paparazzi was so important, right? And now it's like we're talking like, oh, Wicked. We're promoting Wicked just because they want Wicked to be like they want Ariana Grande at the Oscars, you know, or like they just want like I don't know, like Barbie. They just want all these stars to go to the Oscars, you know, just to attract an audience. This event should be big enough, right, that you don't have to do that, and also it's got to be like an event where like we don't have access to these people so much that I need to see them at the Oscars. That's the problem, really. So I don't know how you do it. I hate how the Oscars. I love them so much. I know you do as well. It just feels like they come and go unless there's a freaking slap on the live broadcast.
Yeah, it's not as rare to hear them speak when they're not on screen anymore. They like Tom Cruise is very active on social media now, which feels weird, you know? And that's someone where you would like Leo is not very active on social media, which also I think enhances like his movie stardom. The only time he comes onto social media is to talk about the environment. And then he gets ripped on in the comments and the replies from all the private jet stuff. But he is someone that carries that old school movie stardom. We need more of those guys, you know? And Paul Mescal, I want to talk about for a sec. He's someone that's like not really on social media. I think he kind of is like the kind of old form of movie star, you know, just a Gladiator 2. He's promoting it just by being on TV, going on SNL. You know, he's not on a story on his Instagram promoting, you know, Gladiator 2. Like, I like those type of guys. Like, no, let the talent speak for themselves. Chalamet is on social media, but he's not super present on it either. You know, he doesn't live on it. He is a brand himself. I think he does a pretty good job of it too. But you need it where it's like, oh, he just won it, like, or he's on the red carpet, he's speaking, I gotta tune in. Not like I hate this guy because what I've seen on social media, I have no interest in watching this. I think that's a lot of people, honestly. And it's only like the tight fandom that has them on Instagram that will watch them at the Oscars. Everyone else is like kind of like, I'm out on this. I don't want to see this. So that's a good one.
Okay. So we have 7.
Yep.
What do you got for 8?
I have another biopic one. Can I do another biopic one?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's going to be another like director actor duo. And I want to see a prioritized Frank Sinatra biopic from Scorsese and Leo DiCaprio, who we just brought up. This should be Martin Scorsese. You're an old dude right now, a legend. I don't know how many movies you got left in the tank. You got 100 that you have ideas of and concepts of and actors you want to work with. There should be only one movie you make or focus on right now, and that is Frank Sinatra, Late Stages, starring Leo. We were just watching The Godfather on Thanksgiving, tradition of ours, and anyone who is Italian and puts on AMC on Thanksgiving. We were talking about it where Johnny Fontaine is an inspiration, right, that comes from like Frank Sinatra. Beginning of the movie, actor is kind of like losing his magic a little bit. He's not really wanted by many, especially as an actor, not to star in films. And it has like the mafia influence, obviously, to get him back into movies. This is the type of movie Martin Scorsese should make. Like it has like the mob associations, and also it has like the Frank Sinatra stardom of it all. He's made what? How many biopics? Like Henry Hill's kind of a biopic for Goodfellas. What other biopics has Scorsese made?
I know the
Raging Bull,
the band,
Last Waltz.
Last Waltz. It's basically a documentary.
Yeah, but to me, it's like I don't know if he just doesn't want to go into like one person. He wants to tell a bigger story. Like you mean so much to Italian culture, Martin Scorsese. Like, if you made a biopic on Frank Sinatra with Leonardo DiCaprio, we would be ecstatic. That would be a classic to have on in Italian households. A Martin Scorsese, Goodfellas, making a biopic about Frank Sinatra. This should be the number one thing, not the Wager or not the Jerry Garcia movie. Not the, oh my God. None of those should matter. You should be making the Frank Sinatra movie because that's long overdue. That should have happened, and it deserves an actor at Leo's level. So,
yeah. I had all those on my list, as in Leo Sinatra. Clearly, that's priority. But I just a quick question. I would like this to be because Leo, you can't really DH Leo without it. Like you can't really DH Leo like they tried to do in Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't think that worked for me. Trying to make him look like 23 years old. So maybe just focus on the mob ties and later in the career Sinatra. That would be interesting rather than the generic biopic that we talked about earlier. Like Scorsese is someone that goes against the grain and doesn't really have to follow that formula. I think that would be really interesting and awesome to see Leo in that condition.
The Johnny Fontaine Goodfellas like era. That would be great. I would be so in on that. You know, I know people want to hear the song, see him sing, but it could be a non-traditional music biopic. That's not really about the music. It's more about the person. And the guy who lived such an interesting life. We talked about Fleetwood Mac, like the dynamics there be interesting. Everything is happening off the stage. The same thing is going on with Frank Sinatra, right? Who has stuff that's being investigated by the FBI, right? The ties with the mob. Okay. Who did he know? Was he with Marilyn Monroe rumored? You know, it's just like stuff like that. That's juicy shit. That's juicy shit. That's meant for the big screen. But that's my number 8. And we got 2 more, Ricky. What do you got?
Yeah, I have a lot of collaborations, biopics. I have another comic book one, and I have more Oscars ones, of course. And I have a bunch of industry related ones, but I feel like we've kind of already touched all those in some capacity. And like you said up the top, kind of want to diversify this list. So I'm going to do a one that maybe isn't high on my personal wish list, but it's something that obviously I'm hoping for Christmas. And that's Ryan Gosling to do sad movies again.
I got a one that can go in tandem with this. I said Andrew Garfield. I want to see him do a dark movie. No, but let's do Ryan Gosling make sad movies again.
Well, dude, he said during the Barbie Oscar campaign, he's done doing sad movies, and he's like one of the best to ever do it. You know, him and Jake G in the 2010s just kind of dominated the really dark dramas with Denny V, you know, or like everything Blade Runner 2049, Prisoners for Jake G, or Enemy with Jake G. Ryan Gosling, Drive in 2011. This guy is so freaking good at playing darker characters. Like, I know he's like great in Crazy Stupid Love, Barbie. Like, I know. But still, like, dude, this guy, First Man, if you rewatch that movie, he's great in that. Like, this guy, I want him to get an Oscar someday, and I think he is best Like it really shows how good he is when he does like these really dramatic roles. And I know like we all love Ryan Gosling, and him just being Ryan Gosling on screen, like in Barbie in some capacity or Crazy Stupid Love. We love that, right? But then you kind of fall into you fall more into the Ryan Reynolds ilk of acting versus like the Christian Bale ilk of acting. And I'd rather see him at the Christian Bale than Ryan Reynolds. You know, a full blown actor versus a movie star. I'd rather see him be an actor.
I'm looking at this list of like people that have won Oscars in like ever, and I'm looking at the recent ones. I can't find one where it's like either it's that it's just happy, like it's a happy movie. Bohemian Rhapsody is sort of happy, but like Freddie Mercury has AIDS, you know, so it's not really happy. It's also a biopic, so it's like traditional Oscar. So Oppenheimer, it's Cillian Murphy, biopic. Brendan Fraser, Whale, sad. Will Smith, King Richard. I wouldn't say it's a biopic. Anthony Hopkins, The Father, sad. Joaquin, Joker, sad. Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody, we just talked about it. Gary Oldman, biopic. Casey Affleck, Manchester by the Sea, the saddest ever. DiCaprio, The Revenant, sad. Eddie Redmayne, Theory of Everything. That's the closest thing, but also sad. Dallas Buyers Club, sad. Daniel Day-Lewis, biopic. The last one is Jean Dujardin, the artist, and no one remembers him.
Low-key sad movie, too.
Yes, King's Speech, biopic. Crazy Heart, sad. Milk, sad. There Will Be Blood, sad. Dark. Like, it's just biopics or sad movies. He's got to do that if he wants to win an Oscar for Best Actor, right? Like Best Supporting is different. You know, like Ke Huy Quan won. So that's a different thing. But if you want to be a Best Lead Actor, biopic or sad person, that's why Chalamet is going to win this year. He's great. He's going to be a biopic, and he's going to do great as Bob Dylan, and he's going to win an Oscar and be the youngest person to do so. Ryan Gosling's got to do that. If he's not going to do that, make a happy biopic or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just tough. He's just way too young to already be saying, like, I'm done doing those type of movies. And he's way too talented to be like, I'm done.
Maybe it's something where it's like he had kids, and when you have kids, it changes your perspective.
Yeah.
You know?
He said that because Eva Mendes is his wife, and he has kids with her. And he was saying, like, how he's a different person at home when he's doing those movies. And he's like, I told Eva, whatever, that I'm done doing those movies because I'm just a different person when I'm in production if I'm doing Blade Runner 2049. But dude, we need you. When your kids grow up, kids are out of the house, come back to us. Come back to us. That's why on my wish list, Gosling to do sad movies again or dark movies again.
Psychological thriller Gosling. You know,
right.
That's what we want. And I did want Andrew Garfield to do a dark psychological thriller. You know, I think
the only one that for Garfield would be Silence. Because that's pretty sad.
Yeah.
But it's still like that's one.
He's great at being sad. I just saw We Live in Time. He was great at being sad in that movie. But I want it to be dark. That's the difference. I want it dark. Break Bad. Heisenberg his ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
10. Last one. I want to make a comic book one, but I'm willing to negotiate. I wanted to do something with the Batman because I love the Batman. You love the Batman. TDI loves the Batman. The audiences love the Batman. I had a couple, so let's just work through it. This is our last request for Santa, you know, and it's the last one. It's the most important one. It's the last one he's going to read on the list. One being Court of Owls, I need to be the main villain in the Batman Part 2. Second one has to do with an actor. I want Josh Hartnett as Harvey Dent in the Batman Part 2. That's a selfish one.
So I thought about Court of Owls, and I thought, if it's not in the second one, there's too many hints and links to the Court of Owls in the Batman universe that it's going to be in it at some point. So is it good enough to put on the wish list where, like, if you look at our wish list, I feel like these are some hopeful ones. I feel like Court of Owls is almost a lock to be somehow a part of the Reeves Batman universe.
Yeah. I want it to be the second. I want it to be in the second movie, though. And you know what I do every Thanksgiving? Black Friday comes, which is the day after Thanksgiving, what I do. I go to Barnes & Noble for Black Friday, and I buy a couple graphic novels every single year, and I buy records. And I bought 2 graphic novels this year, one being Hush, and I don't want Hush to be the main villain. I don't want that. I want the Court of Owls instead. The second one I got was Batman Arkham Asylum. I bought that one. I would love the third Batman movie to be him in Arkham Asylum. That's initially what the Batfleck solo Batman movie was going to be. You know, he was going to be in Arkham Asylum. This is this. I was like, really, like how it's a really dark psychological thriller type of story. That would be like what we were just talking about. Like that would be great to see the Batman universe in Arkham Asylum adapt that story. But I think the one that I can see happening, and I put it at like a 7 or 8 out of 10 is the Court of Owls, like likelihood being in the Batman Part 2.
Okay, I'm down for that one. I'm down. Hartnett,
That's like
Hartnett's a weird one.
That's like a 3 out of 10.
Hartnett's a weird one because, like, what if, like, I don't know, who's another big time actor? Like, who's another guy that we love that just like gets cast as Harvey Dent? We'd be like, oh yeah, that's awesome.
Well,
Like Josh Brolin gets like, I'm thinking of Josh's. It's like, oh, you're Harvey Dent. Like, I'll be like, damn, that's pretty damn good.
yeah,
That's pretty good. And I'm not gonna be like, oh, I want Josh Hartnett.
don't. But part of my list, like honorable mentions, we'll talk about is like I was rooting for like, okay, I want to see this actor's comeback, you know, and I was like, okay, Hartnett, like Oppenheimer, Trap, and now Harvey Dent in the Batman. And I was thinking of other actors, like we'll talk about it later, but I was thinking about like comebacks, just like that I want to see. The likelihood goes way down if we put a specific actor in a certain role. Just having the Court of Owls, like the hints that we've gotten, the corruption in the Reeves verse, how it ties so well with them as the villains, overarching would be great too. I think that's the one. I think that should be it. Unless you have a juicier one that you want to do instead.
Related to the Batman universe?
I don't know. Did you have any more for the Batman?
Not the Batman. I have something related to Batman.
Oh boy, you have a casting for like the
No.
DCU?
I have Batman Beyond movie, like Into the Spider-Verse, which was on the books, and then we saw the stills that someone made. That would be sick if they did like a DC Into the Spider-Verse with Batman. Batman Beyond.
And after those stills came out, I think people are like, we need to see this happen.
Right. It looks amazing.
Like James Gunn would be like, we have to make that. Like that looks so crazy. But the fact that we've seen it and we haven't heard anything about it, does that decrease the likelihood?
Yes, but James Gunn's so early and his priorities definitely that falls way lower. You know, don't have a Batman for the DCU yet. So that definitely falls on the totem pole. So I'm not counting it out, but you are right. It does fall in likelihood.
Let's do it though. That's a fun one. Batman Beyond, Across the Spider-Verse style movie or series. I like that. Animated. Boom. Written down. That's 10. I'll run through the 10 items we have on our wish list that we're sending to Tim Allen. First one, return to the comedy. The heyday. The era of Will Ferrell, Sandman, Ben Stiller, right? Frat Pack, mid-2000s. Bring it back. Second one, Dune Part 2 wins Best Picture. Third one, Mahershala Ali crosses over from the MCU to the DCU and plays Martian Manhunter. Number 4, the symbiote is introduced in Spider-Man 4 and then used in Secret Wars. Fleetwood Mac biopic, number 5. Number 6, Tom Cruise will star in QT's final movie. Number 7, make the Oscars cool again. Make them relevant. 8, have Leo and Marty Scorsese prioritize the Sinatra movie. 9, Gosling returns to dark psychological roles. And 10, we have a Spider-Verse style Batman Beyond movie. That's 10. That's a pretty good list, Ricky Flux. I think it's pretty diverse. It's not too comic booky. It's not too Oscar-y, right? And I think we have some miscellaneous there too that helps out.
I agree. That's a good resume right there. That's a good diversification of the portfolio right there.